The chill of a New York City autumn seeped into my bones, a familiar sting I hadn't felt in years. I stood on a quiet street in Brooklyn, the brownstones a stark contrast to the sterile suburbs I had called home for 2 decades. The address in my hand felt heavy, a single slip of paper that held the key to my future. It was Michael's address, the son I hadn't seen in over 5 years. A part of me wanted to turn back. The city, with its hurried pace and unapologetic ambition, was not a place I was comfortable in anymore. But the thought of my current life, the endless cycle of bills, the faded dreams, the quiet desperation, pushed me forward. It was a life I no longer wanted, and Michael was my ticket out. The news of his success had reached me through a mutual acquaintance, a former neighbor who had a penchant for gossip. "Did you hear about Michael? He's a tech mogul now, a real wunderkind. His company is worth millions." The words had hit me like a physical blow, a mix of disbelief and bitter envy. How could my son, the boy I raised, have achieved so much without me? I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs. I imagined the headlines: "Local mom sues son for cut of his fortune." The idea was audacious, ruthless, and brilliant. After all, I had given him life. I had sacrificed my youth, my career, to raise him. Didn't that entitle me to a share of his success? It was simple logic. He owed me. He owed me for every late night, every school tuition payment, every sacrifice I had made. It was time for him to pay his debt. I found the building and buzzed the intercom, my heart a hammer against my ribs. A moment of silence, then a cautious voice came through. "Hello? It's your mother, Michael," I said, my voice softer than I had intended. The silence on the other end stretched, an eternity of unspoken resentment. I could feel his hesitation, the years of neglect and distance hanging between us. He had every right to be angry. I hadn't been a good mother. I had been absent, more focused on my own life than his. But that was in the past. This was about the future, about my future. Finally, the lock buzzed, and I pushed the heavy door open. I walked into the lobby, the air warm and smelling of expensive coffee. The elevator took me to the top floor, and as I stepped out, I saw him standing there, his face a mask of surprise and guarded emotion. He was no longer the boy I remembered. He was a man, confident and poised, with a weary maturity in his eyes that I had put there myself. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter. To get the next one and the rest of the story as soon as they're ready, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Michael's apartment was everything I had envisioned and more. The living room, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooked the Brooklyn skyline. Sunlight, pale and cold, streamed in, illuminating the polished hardwood floors and the minimalist furniture. A piece of abstract art, a messy splatter of colors hung on one wall. I almost laughed. The boy who couldn't even keep his own room clean now had a masterpiece on his wall. "What do you want, Mom?" His voice was flat, devoid of the warmth I had foolishly hoped for. He stood with his arms crossed, a clear barrier between us. He hadn't even offered me a hug. Can't a mother visit her son? I forced a smile, but it felt brittle. "I heard about your company, darling. I'm so proud of you." The words felt like a lie on my tongue, but I pushed through. He didn't move. "You're proud? You weren't proud when I was a kid, working on my computer instead of playing outside. You never cared about my projects or my dreams." The bitterness in his voice was a tangible thing. I waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, Michael, that's just dramatic. I was just trying to make sure you had a balanced life." I knew it was a terrible excuse, but it was the only one I had. I glanced around the room, taking in the state-of-the-art electronics, the expensive liquor cabinet, the aura of success that filled every corner. It was all a testament to his ambition, an ambition I had unknowingly fueled by my neglect. "Let's not talk about the past," I said, my tone shifting to one of forced business. "Let's talk about the future, your future, and mine." I walked over to the windows, looking out at the city below, and felt a surge of possessiveness. This was all his, and I wanted it. No, I deserved it. He finally dropped his arms, a sigh of resignation escaping his lips. "What exactly do you want, Mom?" he asked, his voice now a mix of exhaustion and defeat. "Spit it out." I turned to face him, the sun framing my silhouette. "I want to be part of your company, Michael. A partner. I helped you get here, and I deserve a piece of the pie." I said the words with a confidence I didn't feel. He laughed. a short, sharp sound that held no humor. You helped me? You were never there, Mom. I did this on my own. You have no claim to any of this. He was right, of course. I knew he was. But the truth was an inconvenient detail. I had a plan, and his rejection was just the first hurdle. I would use everything I had against him, emotional manipulation, legal threats, anything to get what I wanted. He was my son, and I knew his weaknesses. I would make him pay, one way or another. Michael's refusal was a challenge, not a defeat. I spent the next few days holed up in a cheap hotel, a laptop open on the bed. I wasn't just doing a simple search. I was conducting an excavation of our past. I dug through old photos, letters, and emails. I found a few from his high school years, polite but distant, asking for money for a school project or to buy parts for his computer. I saved them all. They were my evidence, my ammunition. The city outside my window was a constant reminder of the stakes. The yellow taxis, the rush of pedestrians, the towering skyscrapers. It was a world of relentless ambition, and I had to match its pace. I was a hunter, and my prey was my own flesh and blood. The thought made me feel a flicker of shame, a momentary discomfort that I quickly pushed aside. This was a war, and in a war, you use every weapon you have. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Brenda, with a reputation for winning unwinnable cases. She listened to my story with a detached clinical interest, her eyes fixed on the documents I had brought. So, you want to claim you were his emotional and financial support? She said, the words a question and a statement all at once, even though you admit to being largely absent. I was there, I insisted, my voice hardening. I paid for his food, his clothes. I put a roof over his head. I'm his mother. Brenda leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing on her lips. That's not enough for a legal claim, but it's a start. We can build a narrative. We can paint him as the ungrateful son who forgot his humble beginnings and the woman who sacrificed everything for him. The court of public opinion is a powerful tool. Her words sent a thrill through me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about power, about proving a point. I wasn't a victim. I was a strategist. I would show Michael that he couldn't just discard me like a broken toy. He had to acknowledge me, to give me the respect and the fortune I deserved. What's the next step? I asked, leaning forward, my heart pounding with a cold, ruthless excitement. Brenda's smile widened. We leak the story to the press. We make him an example. We get the public on our side, and then he'll have no choice but to settle. It's a classic pressure play, and it almost always works. I walked out of her office that day, feeling a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The city seemed brighter, more vibrant. The wind that whipped through the streets no longer felt cold. It felt like a promise of victory. I was ready to play dirty. Michael had no idea what was coming. The first article hit like a bomb. The headline was a masterpiece of sensationalism. Tech mogul's mother claims he owes her a stake in his $10 million company. The accompanying photo was a carefully selected one of me, smiling softly, with a blurred image of a young Michael in the background. The text was a carefully crafted blend of truth and exaggeration, portraying me as a long-suffering mother who had been cruelly cast aside by her ungrateful, successful son. My phone rang off the hook. Old friends, neighbors, and distant relatives called, their voices a mix of pity and thinly veiled curiosity. "I can't believe he'd do that to you," one said. "After all you did for him." I smiled to myself. The narrative was working. I waited for Michael to call. I knew he would. The media attention was exactly the pressure I wanted. When his number finally appeared on my screen, I took a deep breath before answering, my voice carefully modulated to sound hurt and exhausted. "Mom, what are you doing?" His voice was a raw mix of fury and disbelief. "Why would you go to the press? This is insane." "I had to, Michael," I said, a tearful catch in my voice I didn't have to fake. "You left me no choice. I came to you first, and you shut me out. I just want what's fair." "Fair?" he roared. "What's fair is me having my life without you trying to steal it. This is my company, my work, my legacy. You weren't there, Mom. You were never there." His words hit a raw nerve, but I quickly suppressed it. "I was there in spirit, Michael," I said, a lie so big it almost felt like the truth. "I was always thinking of you, praying for you. A mother's love transcends distance." The line went silent for a moment. I could hear his ragged breathing. The silence was my victory. He was breaking. I knew he was. He was a good person at heart, and he was vulnerable to emotional manipulation. He wouldn't want to fight me in public, not with this story. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours," he finally said, his voice flat with defeat. "But don't think you've won. This isn't over." The click of the phone call ending felt like the final word. I had won the first round. He was ready to negotiate. I had him right where I wanted him. The city lights outside my window seemed to glitter in my favor. A million tiny promises of a future I was about to seize. To make sure you don't miss the exciting conclusion of this story, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Negotiations began, and I felt a twisted sense of pride. My son, the self-made millionaire, was being forced to the table because of me. Brenda, my lawyer, was a shark. She was relentless, using every emotional detail I had given her to paint Michael as a callous, ungrateful son. The media ate it up, and the pressure on him grew with each passing day. I had moved into a nicer hotel, one with a view of Central Park, and the days blended into a cycle of calls with Brenda, meetings with reporters, and a growing sense of power. I was no longer the forgotten mother. I was a woman of consequence. My name was in the papers. My face was on the news. I was finally someone. Michael, on the other hand, was unraveling. He sent me an email one night, a long, rambling message that was a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate plea for me to stop. "Why are you doing this, Mom? Do you know what you're doing to me? To my company? This isn't just about money. It's about my life. I have employees, investors. My reputation is being destroyed." I read his words and felt a momentary pang, a flash of the maternal love I had long buried. But I quickly suppressed it. He was a grown man. He could handle it. This was just business. And besides, his pain was a small price to pay for the security and comfort I so desperately craved. The lawyers went back and forth, and the numbers grew with each passing offer. From a small lump sum to a percentage of the company, and finally, to a seat on the board. Michael's latest offer was staggering. $1 million and a lifetime salary, all in exchange for me dropping the lawsuit and signing a non-disclosure agreement. It was more money than I could have ever imagined. A king's ransom. Brenda urged me to take it. "It's a fantastic deal," she said. "We've got him over a barrel, but this is a very generous offer. It's more than you'd ever get in court." I smiled, a slow, predatory grin. "It's not enough," I said. "He needs to pay. He needs to know what he did to me." Brenda's eyes narrowed. "What he did to you? You're the one who was absent, who is now trying to take his company. You're the one who is the villain in this story, and everyone knows it." I froze. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. Was I the villain? I had never thought of myself that way. I was a mother fighting for what was rightfully hers. But as I looked at her, I saw a reflection of the cold, hard truth. In my pursuit of what I wanted, I had become something monstrous. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The public articles, the whispered gossip, the pitying looks of my old friends. It wasn't pity for me, but for Michael. I had become the villain. I had been so consumed by my own narrative that I hadn't seen the one the world was painting for me. My phone rang again, and I saw it was my sister, Clara, a woman who had always been a moral compass to me, even when I refused to listen. "Is it true, Lorraine?" she asked, her voice laced with disappointment. "Are you really doing this to Michael?" "He owes me, Clara," I said, my voice cracking. "He's a millionaire, and I'm living on a shoestring." "And whose fault is that?" she shot back. "You made your choices, Lorraine. You chose your own life over being a mother to him. He was a kid, a lonely kid who had to raise himself. Do you know how many times he called me, asking for advice, for help, for just someone to talk to? Because you weren't there. He was scared and alone, and you were too busy chasing your own dreams." Her words were a scalpel, cutting through the layers of lies I had built around myself. I remembered the late nights, the times I had chosen a night out with friends over helping him with his homework, the times I had told him to figure it out when he came to me with a problem. I had been a ghost in his life, and now I was a ghost haunting his success. The phone slipped from my hand, and I sat there, numb, as the silence filled the room. The elegant hotel room suddenly felt like a cage. The Central Park view, A constant reminder of the wealth I was so desperate to possess, now felt like a mocking reflection of my own emptiness. I had everything I had ever wanted on the verge of being mine, but I had a sinking feeling that I was losing something far more valuable. The thought of facing Michael, of looking into those hurt and angry eyes, filled me with a terror I had never known. The lawsuit, the money, the power, it all seemed hollow now. I had pursued it with such single-minded purpose that I hadn't considered the cost. I had destroyed the one thing I had left in this world, my relationship with my son. The battle I had so eagerly started was turning into a war against myself, and I was losing. I called Brenda and told her to stop. "Stop everything," I said, my voice flat, empty. "I don't want to go through with it." She was furious. "Are you out of your mind? We have him. He's ready to pay a king's ransom. This is the opportunity of a lifetime." "I don't care," I said, my words a whisper. "Just stop it. End the lawsuit. Drop all charges." She reluctantly agreed, but not before making it clear I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I hung up the phone and sat in the quiet of my hotel room, the silence a heavy blanket. The media frenzy began to die down. The articles about Michael and me became less frequent, replaced by the next sensational story. The world, it seemed, had already moved on. But I couldn't. I was stuck in a purgatory of my own making, a woman who had tried to take everything, and was now left with nothing. I finally worked up the courage to send Michael a message. It was short and to the point. "I'm dropping the lawsuit. I'm sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me." I hit send and felt an overwhelming sense of relief, followed by a wave of crushing loneliness. I checked out of the hotel and booked a ticket home, back to the suburban hell I had tried so desperately to escape. I had come to New York a hunter, and I was leaving a broken, defeated woman. As the taxi drove through the bustling streets of Manhattan, I saw a familiar face on a billboard. It was Michael, his face confident and smiling, advertising his company. He looked so happy, so successful. The boy I had failed was thriving, and I was going back to where I had started. I had tried to take his success as my own, but I had only succeeded in highlighting my own failures. I had been so focused on what he owed me that I had forgotten what I owed him: a mother's love, a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on. I had been so fixated on his millions that I had lost sight of the priceless human connection that was my only real treasure. My heart ached with a pain I hadn't felt in years, a pain that was not about money or power, but about the profound, unfixable chasm between a mother and her son. I had won the battle for the headlines, but I had lost the war for his heart. To find out what happens next, and to see how this dramatic story unfolds, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Back in my small suburban home, the silence was deafening. The familiar objects, the worn sofa, the faded photos, the chipped mug, all seemed to mock me. They were a testament to a life of quiet desperation, a life I had so foolishly thought I could escape. The brief taste of power and notoriety had made this life feel even more suffocating. I spent my days in a haze of regret. I replayed every conversation with Michael, every missed opportunity, every moment of neglect. I remembered his lonely figure hunched over a computer screen, a boy who had to find his own way in the world. I had been a ghost in his life, and now I was haunted by my own past. One afternoon, I was cleaning out a dusty closet and stumbled upon a small wooden box. Inside, I found an old photo of Michael and me at a school fair. He was about 10, his face smeared with cotton candy, and he was clutching my hand, his smile wide and trusting. The sight of that pure, innocent joy shattered me. I had held his hand then, but I had let go somewhere along the way. I had never given him a chance to fail and learn, but he had done so anyway. He had built his own success brick by brick, while I was so busy wallowing in my own self-pity. My greatest failure was not the lack of money. It was the absence of love. My vilest crime was not trying to steal his fortune. It was robbing him of a mother. I had to do something. Not for me, but for him. A small, desperate act of atonement. I wrote him a letter, a long, rambling confession. I didn't try to make excuses or justify my actions. I just laid it all out. My failures, my greed, my regret. I told him how sorry I was, how I had been a terrible mother, and how I had no right to his money or his forgiveness. It was a raw, painful admission. A final, desperate plea for peace. I didn't expect a response. I just needed to say it, to acknowledge the truth out loud. I sealed the envelope and put it in the mail, a single, physical act of surrender. I had spent so long fighting for what I thought I deserved, and now I was finally fighting for what I had always needed, a connection to my son, a chance, however small, at redemption. A week later, I was watering the garden, the mundane task a quiet comfort in my empty life. A car pulled up, a sleek black vehicle I didn't recognize. The driver's side door opened, and a figure emerged. It was Michael. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed, but he was here. He had come. He walked up the driveway, his hands in his pockets, and a silence hung between us, thick with years of unspoken resentment and pain. "I got your letter," he said, his voice low and cautious. It was a lot to take in. "I know," I said, my voice a whisper. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. For everything." He nodded slowly, looking past me at the house, at the life he had escaped. "I don't need your apology, Mom. I need to understand." He looked at me, his eyes searching, a painful question in them. "Why? Why did you do it? Was it really just about the money?" I shook my head, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "No," I said, the word a confession. "It was about me. My whole life, I felt like I was worth nothing. And when I saw your success, I thought maybe if I could get a piece of it, I could finally be someone. I didn't see you, Michael. I only saw what you had. I'm so sorry." He was silent for a long moment, the air thick with unspoken emotions. I braced myself for the final rejection, for him to turn and leave, to end this painful chapter for good. Then, he did something that surprised me. He took a step forward, a cautious step into the chasm between us. "I forgive you," he said, the words a quiet promise, a gift I didn't deserve. "I've been so angry for so long, but seeing you like this, I just want to move on. I want to have a life." I couldn't speak. I could only stand there, my heart a raw, bleeding wound, and watch as my son, the man I had so cruelly wronged, offered me a sliver of grace. His forgiveness wasn't a return to the past. It was a path to a different future, a future where we could be in each other's lives, not as adversaries, but as a mother and son trying to find their way back to each other. I had lost everything, but in that moment, I had gained something far more precious. My relationship with Michael didn't magically heal. It was a slow, painful process of rebuilding, a fragile trust pieced together day by day. He didn't offer me money or a position in his company. He didn't owe me that. Instead, he offered me something infinitely more valuable, his time. He would call me on weekends, and we would talk about his work, his life in the city, and the simple things. He came to visit me, not with a lawyer in tow, but with a pizza in hand, and we would sit in the living room, a quiet, comfortable silence between us. He was still cautious, and I understood why. A scar had been left on our relationship, a reminder of the damage I had caused. The media had moved on, and my name was no longer a headline. I was just a woman living her life, a woman who had made a terrible mistake and was now living with the consequences. My life was simple, but it was no longer empty. The bitterness and desperation that had consumed me were gone, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. I had a purpose now, not to get what I wanted, but to be a better person, a better mother. I found a new meaning in my life, volunteering at a local community center, helping others who were struggling with their own demons. I used my experience, my regret, as a cautionary tale. I spoke about the importance of family, of love, of not letting greed blind you to what truly matters. I was no longer a villain. I was a living lesson. One day, Michael called me, his voice filled with an uncharacteristic excitement. "Mom, I'm coming to visit this weekend, and I'm bringing someone with me." When he arrived, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a beautiful young woman, her face kind and warm. "Mom, this is Jessica," he said, a proud smile on his face. "My fiancée." He introduced her to me, and as I looked at him, I saw not the angry, hurt man I had wronged, but a happy, fulfilled man, a man who had built his own family, a man who had found love and purpose despite my best efforts to destroy him. In that moment, all the pain, all the regret, All the loneliness I had carried for so long melted away. My son was happy. That was all that mattered. I had tried to take his fortune, but he had given me something far more precious, a second chance. My journey had not ended with $1 million or a seat on a board. It had ended with a simple, yet profound truth. The real treasure in life isn't money. It's love, it's family, and it's the quiet, simple joy of seeing your child happy. I had lost a fortune, but I had gained my son. I hope you enjoyed the entire story. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel.